Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis. Today we are honored to have a very special guest. Dr. Mansur Nurdel is a board-certified optometrist with offices throughout the Denver metro area. In addition to his time spent as a doctor, he's a real estate agent and investor. He currently resides in Castle Pines, Colorado, with his wife and two boys. He's the author of One More Mountain, Fleeing Iran for America. Good afternoon, and thank you so kindly for being here with us at Politics Done Right, Dr. Nurdel.
Well, thank you very much, Egberto. It's an honor to be in your show and the opportunity to talk to you as well as your listeners. This is an honor for me.
Well, look, let me first tell you the book that we want to discuss. And I've always been intrigued with Iran. I mean, I from the time I went to the University of Texas at Austin, which guess what? It started in 1980. So that should be quite apropos with you. But anyway, the book, interesting. But first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself. Not in Iran, but right now, present day in Colorado.
As I have really written the book, I am an immigrant. Of course, I came into the United States as a refugee in 1989. And now currently I live in Colorado, and I operate multiple eye care centers in Denver metro area. And as you mentioned, I have two kids. Two boys. Actually, one is in UT Austin. So
he's a Longhorn.
That's right. He's a big Longhorn fan. So
well,
I don't
should
think
be
he
happy
misses
because
any of the games.
I know, but here's the deal: we are in the we are in the what you call it, playoff.
That's
we
right.
made it to the playoffs. So you're going to be coming to Texas, I guess, a few times to check him out. Does he like it here?
Oh, he loves it. He loves Austin, and he had a difficult in the summer there, though. But the heat this year was hot, so
brutal. Yes.
Yes, so he is enjoying it. So that's what I'm, of course, really in the real estate world. I'm a more investor than really more a real estate agent. But I do have a license for just myself, and so to understand the real estate world a little bit better.
So you came here and pretty much lived the American dream. You had the wherewithal to go ahead and work your butt off to move forward here in America, correct?
Yes, I actually came with the $413 in my pocket, and the deposit for my apartment was $275. So I was short even paying the first month the rent. But I am grateful what America has offered to me and many other immigrants. I am really perfect example of American dream immigrant life.
I'm not going to try to get political with you on my politics, but I just want to say something. One of the reasons we do what we do here is exactly that reason. I'm an immigrant as well. I'm an immigrant from Panama, Central America. And one of the reasons I do what I do is we came here like you did to America as a dream, to America as a place where you can be successful if you work hard, and America where your integrity gets you further. So we cannot allow that to go away. But let's talk about your book. Tell me, why did you write the book, first of all?
Well, it's I'll tell you background. It was in 2007. A very good patient of mine invited us to see a play that he was going to be at. And the play was in a Cherry Creek North Theater, and we didn't know what the play was. And my wife and we just really went to support Mark. And we went there, and the play was about the diary of Anne Frank. As a Persian, as an Iranian, we have no clue who Anne Frank is. We really don't. I had never known about it. I had up to that point. So I am sitting in the play theater at Egberto, and I was really watching my own life in front of my eyes. It was so impactful that I could not sit and watch the play. I walked out. I couldn't control myself. My wife didn't know the depth of the stories, and she panicked. So I here I'm 45 years old, and in the hall is crying his heart out. So ironically, I had actually exactly at the same age as Anne Frank. I had my own diary because it was so real that I couldn't take it. This was the opening of my talking to my friends and my patients. And anytime I told a little bit of a story of my life to my patients and my friends, they said, "Oh my God, you have to write this." Finally, in 2019, I had more opportunity. Workload was reduced significantly. And I said, this is the one thing I need to do. So I really wrote the book for my kids, my new generation, to understand what life looks like outside this wonderful country that we have here.
Now, you started the book with a story and candy. Tell me a little bit about that.
I was 4 years old when my cousin and I, we ran to a only store that our village had, and we ran to get a candy, and the store owner refused to sell us the candy. And I was just confused. I was, what would a 4 years old really can comprehend? So I came back to my mom and crying and say, his name was Red Eye Muhammad, actually. It was so funny that he had, now that I'm in eye care center, and I know what that condition was.
Right.
So, and my mom said, yes, the store owner will not sell goods to our family because we are not Muslims. We are Baha'is. We were the only Baha'i family in that village. And I really faced the discrimination and from age 4, and knowing my family is different when I was 4 years old.
The reason I wanted to start there is because that is inherently something that so many of us have to go through. And I think it, as bad as it is, sometimes what it either makes you stronger, meaning you're going to have the resolve to overcome what's been happening to you, or you're going to succumb to it. And it's evident you overcame it time and time again. So tell me the story of you moving around in Iran as you and your family as a person with a different religion than the religion that predominated there. And let me tell you how I'd like to kind of address this, because you lived through various periods in Iran. In other words, in Iran, we could get started with Mossadegh, or we could get started with when the Shah was in power, migrated into to 79 when it was taken over. How were these different periods? Well, with you, not Mossadegh, but the other one. Well, how did this period affect your family, not being that religion that it has been a constancy several thousand years in the making?
So I actually address some of these in my book. So I started the book really since when I was 4 years old, and I described what, as a young boy, I really experienced everything that you can think of: bullying, name calling, stone thrown at, and just really there was not even a day that I would come home without being bullied on the streets. So, but that was part of daily life. And but in 1978, things changed drastically. So our family, which was the only Baha'i family in the small village in northwestern part of Iran, actually our house was completely destroyed. Our belongings were looted, and we were forced to leave the village. I was only 14 years old, and basically I spent my teenage years in a larger city called Tabriz in northwestern part of Iran. And these teenage years were tumultuous. This was the time that there was a war between Iran and Iraq, as well as the everyday political unrests, and Baha'is were always target during these times. So several Baha'is were executed during that time in Tabriz. Over 200 Baha'is were executed actually in early 1980s in Iran. So I witnessed all of those.
Now, interestingly, didn't the Baha'i religion start off in Iran?
Yes, yes. Baha'i faith is started in 1844 in Iran.
Now, being of the religion, I mean, there's nothing physically ethnically different than that you have from any Iranian. So you had to be demonstrably, you had to display your religion in somehow that folks knew you were of a different faith, correct?
Correct. They should know that, yes.
So it takes a certain amount of fortitude that in a place where mostly the entire or the vast majority of the country is Islam of the Islam faith, Muslim, that you can actually stand out as a Baha'i or Christian or whatever other religion that inhabits the location. What do you think gave your family that resolve to keep to be able to live that life surrounded as they were?
Well, I think that just being true to yourself and your heart and your belief. So my family, I still have 3 brothers in Iran, Egberto. They're still suffering today. It hasn't gone away. So what has happened since 1988, it has become systematically backed by the government. So that's the prior 1978, 79. Yes, we were in a small village. I was bullied. However, it wasn't in a larger city population to know, okay, you are Baha'i. So, but now it has become a systematic persecutions of Baha'is by the Islamic government. No Baha'i even today as a young man can get a higher education than high school.
Oh, really?
That's right. My American friends, they really get dumbfounded to hear it. No Baha'i is still allowed to get a higher education than a high school in Iran. Baha'is cemeteries and holy places are destroyed. And even the old, what is it, the old dead body is going to do to you? So, and these are done and really by the government. No Baha'i is still, no Baha'i works in a government agencies, large corporations, and they are in a tremendous economic pressure. So they're all over about 300 now, about 300,000, close to 400,000 Baha'is. All of them are suffering in every aspect of it because of these persecution today.
Now, are you telling me then, Dr. Nurdel, that Baha'is in Iran, Baha'is are not doctors, lawyers, or any of these things? They can only be, let's say, a storekeeper or something like that?
Unfortunately and sadly, absolutely right.
Because if you can't get a professional degree, you can't practice medicine, you can't practice law, you can't practice engineering or any one of those subjects.
Correct.
So if you wanted to be a doctor, you just about had to be a refugee as you were. Tell us a little bit about your path from Iran to refugeedom.
Sure. Well, just to give you a little bit, even to confirm what you said, actually, my brother was a second-year medical school student, and he was expelled from university, and he is still in Iran, and he is just running a shop. And not every shop, by the way, they cannot run a shop that has to do with the food or so. Restrictions, just incredible.
Right.
So to answer your question, so I left Iran to pursue a dream of really becoming an architect, which I ended up being not an architect. And I came to Milwaukee, Wisconsin as a refugee. As I mentioned, it's really nothing in my pocket.
Right.
So
where did you come through? You started in Iran. How did you get to Wisconsin?
I was in Turkey for a year and a half. So what the book is all about, because I walked the border of Iran and Turkey in the dead of winter, 13 days walk, when the temperatures were way below zero, snow up to chest. We crossed the frozen rivers and mountains as high as our Rocky Mountains in Colorado, even higher.
Wow.
So, and 13 days. We walked at the night times and we slept at the daytimes. So after 13 days, which again, I detailed every single day. Fortunately, I had all these notes to bring those information to life. So it's after I arrived to Turkey, you have to go to United Nations, the refugee office, and register. So I was as a refugee in Turkey for 18 months before coming to United States.
And then you went through the immigration at the United States to get in entrance as a refugee into Wisconsin.
Correct.
Now, when you said you traveled through those mountains at night for 13 days, is that a known smuggling path, let's say, that's used to get people out of Iran who are trying to escape the persecution?
There's a ethnic group in that region, Kurds. Everyone knows these days Kurdistan.
Right.
The Kurdistan is the Kurdish people live in the region that share the border between Iran and Turkey and Iraq. So they really know that region well. They actually intermarry from the one country to another country. So the border doesn't mean anything to them.
Right.
So we had
a guide,
guided or hired these smugglers or Kurdish smugglers to guide us. But it is so dangerous, Egberto, that very, very few Iranians will take that path. It's a super dangerous path. So there are other Baha'is have escaped from Iran. The majority have taken the route to Pakistan, which is much less dangerous.
Now, when you made that route, that journey, did you do it with relatives, or did you do it pretty much, I'm getting the hell out of here?
No, two other friends. Two friends that one is now in Australia, and the other one was in Canada, but unfortunately we lost him.
Okay, sorry to hear about that. Now, it's interesting because one of the reasons that after I Tom kind of told me, Tim told me about you, that immigrant story is powerful, especially in these times where xenophobia is going through the roof. And I tell you, a lot of people don't understand the tribulations that folks go through to come to the United States or other countries. Some of them seem to believe like there's really much of a humane choice not to do it. And I think anybody who can walk across mountains on 0 degrees, they've earned their right to live anywhere.
Well, thank you. I think my view on this, frankly, my story probably is not any. I am lucky one that I was able to write this story, Egberto.
Right.
I am very, very sure there are much more deeper stories than mine. the immigrants, they really, what my view is, bring a different different light to our fabrics of our society. We contribute to this society, and I am perfect example of this. I'm actually honored to say that in the past 25 years, I had employed as high as 86 staff in the Metro Denver area. So it's a gift this country has offered to us, and I am very blessed to be a part of this.
Well, of course you're blessed to be a part of it. I'm blessed to be a part of this country. We are blessed to be immigrants are blessed to be here, and those who are former immigrants as well are blessed to be here.
Absolutely.
So what I try to mention, and with your story, why it endears me to it is, again, it's not only that you've employed a whole lot of people, is that you have made the fabric of this country, like every immigrant has made the fabric of this country what it is. Because of who we are is
Correct.
why we can be as powerful as we are. Absent that, we're nothing.
I 100% agree. I think the other thing that I have to say, no one really gets up and leaves his or her country because we just want to. Okay.
Right.
There are certain circumstances that forces us to take this really dangerous routes. I mean,
Right.
I didn't just get up and say, okay, I'm just going to walk on for 13 days in the dangerous mountains. It was actually, I knew several months before that, it was 19 years old and 3 other Baha'is were perished in that mountains. But you do it. Sometimes you just don't have a choice, and or you see a choice future better on the other side of the mountain. At least you take that risk. I took that risk, and I succeeded. And unfortunately, there were people, some did not succeed, and that's how the immigration is. Immigration is all about taking risks for better future on the other side.
Well, the people who settled this country, they took risks, and as well, didn't they? And
Absolutely.
everybody who's sitting on this land took some risks. Those who lost this land, who were originally here, took risks. I mean, one of the things that I try to put out there to because right now we're going through a period of xenophobia in this country, and what I try to make people know using my program quite often is that, first of all, it is great to have you here in this country. It is great to have all the immigrants in this country, but let's also note that externalities, including some created by our country, yours truly, the United States of America, are directly responsible for a lot of the people transitioning to this land. So I think your story and the story of many other immigrants who could tell a different story than your story would give the mosaic that people need to see that, in effect, we shouldn't be looking at immigration as a problem, but we should be embracing immigration, not only because it's a net positive for the country, but just because it's the right thing to do.
100%. I think we need to, I'm pretty sure you know all these statistics, and the United States really 4.45% of the world's population live in the United States.
Yeah.
We consume 18% of the world's resources.
Yes.
We have to rethink, okay, of our consumerism. We have to think. So America is a land of opportunity, and if we want to have a better world, we need to re-examine our behavior, frankly.
And the fact, math is, as you well know, math is absolute. If
Correct.
4% of the people are taking 18% of the resources, and then you ask why immigrants are coming over here, well, there's a
100%.
shortage of resources. So math is absolute. We have to be cognizant of that. And one of the things, Mansur, is that too many people they just hear the top lines and they don't understand the history of the world, and they don't understand the complicity of what we do in the world. And your story and the story of immigrants over and over are there to tell just that. Look, I enjoyed speaking to you, but before we go, I need to ask you a few things. One thing, most important question is,
Sure.
what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't ask you?
I think you asked everything, and the only thing that I would mention, how this someone can get a hold of this book.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that. But I just want to know if within the meat of the book, is there something that you want to tell the audience before we go ahead and tell them how they can find the book?
Well, I think it'd be addressed. Again, it's really, the book is about the human resiliency and shared faith, and how I like my readers and people know how what the Baha'is are going through in Iran as a result of that. But I appreciate, I think we addressed everything that I thought we were going to talk.
Well, look, let me ask you, Dr. Nurdel, how can folks, first of all the links to your book is going to be in the accompanying blog for this particular program, but please tell them how they can get your book in other domains.
Thank you. The website for the book is www.onemoremountain.com. The book is available in every format, in audiobook, ebook, Kindle, and it's available through all the major bookstores, as well as any of the Amazon and major bookstores.
And you even got it in hard copy too.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, well, look, first of all, Dr. Mansur, the author of One More Mountain, fleeing Iran from or for America. Let me repeat that. One More Mountain, fleeing Iran for America. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you very much. It was an honor, and it was an honor to be here and to talk to your listeners. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Stephanie Thomas. Stephanie Thomas is the Secretary of State of Connecticut. Stephanie, welcome to Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Stephanie, the first question that I'm going to ask is this question I shouldn't, because we shouldn't be going there. But it was shocking to me when I saw you and you were presented as the Secretary of State of Connecticut, a state that I don't think I would have expected a Black woman to be Secretary of State of. I mean, I'm sorry, like I said, it's a wrong question, but, I'm honest on this show.
It's understandable. When I moved to Connecticut 10 years ago, I would have never thought that a Black person, let alone me, would be Secretary of the State. But here I am.
Now, tell me, first of all, what kind of campaign did you run? I mean, it is something that I think, first of all, it speaks well of Connecticut. That's the first thing. But secondly, it is something that I think you can impart on others as how can you campaign in a state that doesn't necessarily look like you, but looks at you and say you are the best qualified for the job.
I think it's really important. I always used to say on the campaign trail that voters are smarter than we think.
Right.
And what I found is that all voters, regardless of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic level, know how to spot the truth and know how to spot BS.
Right.
And I'm a truth teller, and I'm also about empowering people, voters, to use their power. So I share with them information about how to make their voice heard. In the secretary's race, there were 7 other Democrats running, also very diverse. 2 Latinas, a Black man, 2 Caucasian men and someone else. Oh, and another black man. So it was a diverse pool. So I think that helped shift the conversation further. As I mentioned to you, I'm the first black secretary that Connecticut has ever had. And we have a long history of allowing the black person to be our state treasurer.
Right.
It was a very progressive reform in the 60s that, hey, let's get someone of color in the executive branch.
Right.
So there's always been a black person in the treasurer's role, but never anywhere else. And I'm not about quotas. I think I just went out there, told the truth, and proved that I was the best candidate.
And it shows. Now, what does the Secretary of State in your state in Connecticut do?
Oh, so in Connecticut, we do many things, but the 2 biggest things, we're in charge of business services. So anytime someone wants to start a business or nonprofit, they go through our office. But the reason secretaries of state are sort of on the radar nowadays, we also oversee the administration of elections.
Right.
So I don't need to tell you how important it is to make sure that people have access to the ballot, that elections are safe and secure, and that we are always just thinking about what's coming next versus what has been.
Right. So you are in charge of elections in Connecticut.
Yes.
So if anything goes wrong in Connecticut,
You know where to look.
We got to look at you now.
Well, I'm going to say no because so every state is different and people don't realize that. In Connecticut, we are not organized by county.
Oh,
So
really?
every single town administers their own election. So we
Right.
have 169 towns.
Okay.
And they are elected. The people who administer
Right.
are elected in their town
Right.
and funded by their town.
Right.
But we have to make sure they're properly trained. We have to make sure they're following all the laws. And we have to make sure, as much as we can, that we are backstopping so that nothing bad happens.
So in Connecticut, does everybody live in a town? Or because, like in Texas, there are rural areas and that sort of stuff that are not incorporated. Is that different in...
Nope, it's the same. So we have a rural area, a coastal area.
Right.
We have big cities. I believe our smallest town has about 800 people, and our largest about 140,000, and everything in between.
So then is everybody associated with a town, even if they're not... even if they're not within, let's say, the town limits or city limits or whatever, they are associated.
They are associated with the town. Yes, exactly.
With the town. Well, I'd like you to tell the folks out there, and specifically progressives, if they want to launch a campaign that many would think would be fairly hard to win, how would you suggest that they start their campaign? How did you start your campaign? Because like I said, I think it is impressive that, again, and you said the field was 7 strong, and I mentioned you had a runoff thereafter, and you had to win in a runoff as well.
Yep.
And you did.
I won a convention, a primary, and a general. So 3 elections all rolled up in one.
Right.
But my political career, the advice I would give is to simply believe in yourself. And sometimes you have to run and lose, and that's okay.
Had you ever lost?
I ran for the state house. I was never involved in politics. I started paying attention, and I didn't like what my state representative was saying and how she was voting. So I decided to just throw caution to the wind. I knew nothing.
Right.
I had to petition onto the ballot.
Right.
I had no campaign manager. I mean, a friend of mine who lives in Brooklyn and I live in Connecticut, and Brooklyn, New York, started helping me out. I had very little. I had nothing going for me.
And you wait. You just got involved because you got pissed off.
I got pissed off. Yes.
Okay.
So, and I thought I can do this, and no one had run against this woman for 3 election cycles.
Oh, really?
And I said, that's not even a democracy. Voters need choice.
Right.
So I actually didn't think I could win, but I thought it's important to do it. So I ran, and guess what? I lost.
Right, but you got to taste
But only
of it.
by a few hundred votes.
Oh, wow.
And
So then
that
you started to
told
say
me-
you could win.
But I'm going to tell you another story if we have time.
Yes, we do.
I decided we got a huge Democratic majority that year in our state house, state senate, and our governor.
Right.
So I'm like, Democratic trifecta. I don't need to run again.
Right.
It's not based on my ego. But there was one law that I was really passionate about, and that's early voting.
Right.
Connecticut is one of only 4 states in the country that has no early voting.
Yeah.
And with a Democratic trifecta, it still didn't pass. So I said,
Wait. Did they have a bill to pass?
there was a bill, yes. And it just didn't get all the support I thought it could. So I said, you know what? I need to get there and see what's happening.
Yeah.
So I ran again, and I won.
Right.
And
In Congress?
No,
In
this
the
is
sta-
our state house.
Okay, in the state house.
State
is what I
house.
meant.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I won, and I asked to be on the elections committee,
Mm-hmm.
and I was appointed vice chair. So I was able to really get in there
See
and
what
do
was
everything.
really happening.
Yeah, exactly. So long story short, Connecticut has early voting now, and we will be rolling it out next year.
Are you saying that you went on there, became the vice chair, and you pulled those guys' legs and said, we are going to do this?
Not me alone. Advocates have been working on this forever, but I think just making sure it's top of mind, because people get distracted with so many other issues.
Right.
And I'm like, without all these voting reforms, every other issue withers on the vine and dies.
I want to stop you a second for the audience. I want you to really listen to what Secretary of State, I notice I read again because I mixed some of these positions up, Thomas has to say. She was a person existing in her state. She saw something that was wrong, and she engaged, and she put herself on the line. She lost her first election. It did not deter her. She ran for the second one, won, but she didn't only win, but she went with a coalition and got the change that pissed her off in the first place and got it changed. That's what I call democracy, and that's what I call an activist getting what needs to be done.
And we can all do it. We all have to try at least.
We all have to try it. So we're moving on. You got that passed.
Yeah. So our Secretary of State decided she wasn't going to run for re-election, a Democrat. And I thought, wow, that job sounds great because it focuses on two things I love. I'm a business owner.
Right.
I had always worked in the nonprofit sector my entire career, started my own fundraising consulting firm for nonprofits. So I love businesses. So the Secretary's office handles business.
Right.
And I love democracy and making sure people, I think we live in a representative democracy, and I think we are living in the American myth that what that means is you vote and then poof, like magic, everything works out.
Right.
And we all know, activists know, that's not how things happen. So I'm trying to affect a culture shift in what a representative democracy means. Yes, we elect people to represent us, but then we have to back up that vote. We have to stay involved the other 364 days a year, by the way, to make sure. When I was in the State House, a bill would come up and I would say, I wonder how my constituents feel. I might hear from 3 people.
Right.
We got to start voicing not only big picture, like I believe in clean air. We all do. But what's the bill number?
Right.
Is there a bill up?
That's actually going to affect that change.
Yes. And how do we get that bill passed?
Right.
Or how do we get that bill tweaked? Language changed, and you only do that with advocacy. You got to go testify. You have to send in your emails. You got to make those phone calls. You got to have meetings with your legislators. And I was just, even early voting, something I was so passionate about. We have to change our constitution. So it went to a ballot measure. 60% of voters voted yes, they wanted early voting.
Right.
But then the bill came up for what should it look like? Should it be 1 day? Should it be 30 days?
That's why early voting could be 1 day, right?
And it could be 1 day.
Yeah.
It could be 2 hours, right? There were some people who were like, well, let's just do it for half a day. And some people said 45 days. So we all went out. We sent emails like, please come testify.
Right.
Do you know how many people showed up to testify?
I'm scared to ask.
About 65 people.
That's not too bad, eh?
That is bad if you want change.
Well, yeah. In other words, if it were something that wanted massive output, you would think that they would have been crowded in the room.
People just got lucky that the Secretary of State and the committee the committee chairs were leaning toward like 2 weeks.
Right.
But what if they were leaning toward 1 day and no one showed up?
Right. Right. One
So
day.
people always wonder like why the bill didn't get shaped a certain way.
Yeah.
Often it's because not enough people showed
it's
up.
sad that when you said 65,
You thought it was good.
I thought it was good, right?
60% of voters said they want it. So
Right.
in real numbers, that's probably in that election, probably 500,000 people.
Right.
And of 500,000, 65
Only 65. Yeah,
showed
it's
up.
not good. It's not good. You're right. That's not good.
That's not good at
But
all.
yeah, so after you got all your work done and you proved yourself in the legislature, you then decided, I'm moving to higher office because now that I've got this law on voting passed, I want to administer the damn thing.
Yes.
And how did that happen?
It was audacious, I won't lie.
Right.
Because at that point, I had only served 1 year in the
Right.
House when I decided to run. And as I said, there were 7 other Democrats.
Right.
And some people, always say, like, wait your turn,
Right.
or you haven't been here that long.
Right.
Most people had no idea who I was.
Right. Yeah.
Because I hadn't been involved in politics.
Yeah.
But my mother didn't raise someone afraid.
She raised somebody that's going to challenge the system.
And I just thought I would regret it if I didn't try.
Yeah.
Because I really thought I had
That you could do
something
it. Yeah.
different to say than the other people running. And it was not based on ego. We passed a lot of election law over the last 2 years, and I felt like this was a time for a secretary who's really focused on implementation.
Right.
And I felt I have a management degree, I own my own business, and it just felt like I would be a good tactician for
Right.
this time
Right.
Versus more policy.
Right.
So I did it,
You did it.
and I won.
You won. I know, no, but you won 3 times.
Yes.
The convention,
Yeah.
the
A primary.
primary, and the main thing.
Yes.
Okay, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't? That's
Oh my
always
gosh.
my last question, and it always stumps you.
Oh, what I would like to talk about, part of the reason I ran is civic literacy
Okay.
is what we're missing
my
in
God,
this country.
yes,
Because
yes.
no entity has ever been responsible for
Yes.
it. So if the State Department of Education doesn't think it should be
Right.
taught or doesn't have the resources, it's left to chance.
Yes.
And I believe we will never fully realize this representative democracy. We will never have policies that match the will of the people. When you think about how many popular things the people believe in
Right.
that never get enacted, part of that is because we all are suffering from a lack of civic literacy.
That is so true.
But the good thing is we
yeah.
can all learn it.
Yes.
And I say it's like anything else. If you play a sport 1 day a year, you're crap at it.
Yeah.
But if you practice every day,
you
every
can look
week,
like you're great at it.
and we live in a time with the internet. And almost every public meeting in every state is
Right.
online.
Right.
You can watch it or you can go
Right.
to it. And that gives you an opportunity to understand the language, to understand the details, to understand who supports and who's a foe. And we have to learn how to intervene in all branches of government at the local level, state level, federal level to make our voice heard. So.
Secretary of State of Connecticut, Stephanie Thomas, thank you so
You're
kindly
so welcome.
for
It's a
having
pleasure.
been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you.
I'm here again with Kiela Smith. I tell you what, we met in Pittsburgh and she had great things happening with this. What was the name of the company? First of all, welcome to Politics Done Right.
Thank you.
You had this thing that you were doing with this group. What was it called again?
Artists design the future.
And what was that all about?
So it was a project that
Wait, let me back up. Is it a project or was it a project?
is
It is a project.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Yeah.
that we were working on. I had brainstormed the idea being inspired by some things I've seen, by what I've seen my father do, by what I've seen an artist in particular here do in leading a similar sort of development over 20 years ago.
Right.
And we were working on it. I approached her and I said, would you help me build this? And she said, absolutely, emphatically, without
Right.
hesitation. And we worked, as I said, in the shadows for 3-4 years with no funding.
Right.
So then I applied to Vocal
And that is?
The fellowship.
Right.
So Vocal is a national fellowship to seed social justice-based enterprise and project ideas
Right.
that really wouldn't normally get the focus or support, which was where we were. So
Right.
Artists Design the Future, our initial intention was to form, or is to form as a worker cooperative. You remember we
I
talked
remember
about
that because you were talking about raising the money per square foot,
Yes,
etc.
exactly. So we're focused on artist-led community engagement and development of mixed-use spaces, i.e. buildings,
Right.
for artists and creative entrepreneurs to own where they work and live or their workspace.
Right.
Collectively in a cooperative model.
Right.
As a cooperative.
So you have all kind of artists living in the same place, and I think I'd ask you about, well, can a writer be there? Can you
Yes,
use it? And
that's
you
a
said
creative,
absolutely, yes.
absolutely.
Right.
And a tradesperson who
Right.
builds things, welds,
They
and
fit the bill.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So since then, since we spoke
And
last
actually,
year,
that is what this is supposed to be now, the update. You just
Yes.
gave us a little preamble of what it's all. Now, what's the update?
so the update is myself
Uh-huh.
and the two other co-founders that are
That I
brought to the
met,
table, Laura Weatherid and Sahai,
Right.
Geraldine Hebert, and myself have been working from, so last April, the Vocal National Fellowship awarded us $30,000
Oh, wow.
and business and storytelling coaching to be that seed funding,
Yeah.
to be the catalyst to get this
More money.
momentum of funding.
Yeah.
Subsequent to that, I wrote another fellowship application that was successful, brought in another 40,000. Subsequent to that, we got a small seed, another seed fund,
You're right.
just around 5,000. Subsequent to that, we got National Endowment for the Arts grant to do feasibility study
Which,
for the building.
and how much is
And
that worth?
through our fiscal sponsor, which is near
Yeah.
Northwest Arts Council, and
Uh-huh.
that was 25,000.
Wow.
And then the City of Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs awarded us 45,000 as part of a program called Together We Heal.
I'm
Wait, I'm not
impressed.
done. There's one more.
Oh, okay.
And that Together We Heal through the Department of Cultural Affairs at the City of Chicago
Yeah.
was also through our fiscal sponsor. And then we just were awarded from the Department of Planning at the City of Chicago.
Right.
That is with the Office of Equity and Racial Justice at the
Right.
city. That's a newly codified office.
Under the
100
new Mayor Johnson.
No, this was under the old mayor.
Oh, okay.
Right before she left.
Right before she left. Okay.
150,000 of funds in what's called the Wealth Building Initiative, focused on shared ownership models and building the ecosystem.
Am I to understand that you guys just brought in about $250,000?
Over, almost,
Over a quarter?
almost 300, 294,000.
294. Well,
Yeah.
my math skills weren't working.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's, and if you remember last year when we spoke, in terms of just getting to the building,
Right.
roundabout could be anywhere around 8 million to 12 million, but we're
Right.
talking about a 25 to 30 unit building
Right, right.
with 20-ish work live units and commercial spaces on the first floor. So, since then, we've had some retreats and really thought about the idea, and so there are other ways we're thinking about how it could exist, whether it's in a smaller buildings to start or multiple, what they call scattered site. It
Right.
could be new construction like what we talked about
Right,
last year. So
right.
there's, and because there are developers out here who are developing in our communities, because this, what we're looking to develop is actually in the community that I live in,
Right.
basically. But there's developers out here where their only metric is ROI. I think we talked
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
last year, but there are other things that must be considered.
Right. Just for folks who don't
Yeah.
understand, that's return on investment.
I'm sorry,
Go
return
ahead.
on investment. Thank you. But they only look at the financial. They don't look at the what is the value to the community, because that's extractive.
Right.
That's just a developer coming in and taking from us.
Right.
What are we building in? How are we using this for placekeeping? How are we using this to build perhaps the technology and the environmental infrastructure and the cultural infrastructure of our own communities and then own it?
Right.
Because there's artist developments in Chicago.
Right.
And the majority, except for the one my co-founder led and
Yeah.
a couple other small ones, all the artists are renters and they don't own. And
yeah.
self-determination is really important because then you control the trajectory of your business, because artists are entrepreneurs, business
Right.
people. You control the trajectory of sustainability and stability of where you live and where you work. Then you can build wealth. then you can grow your income, then you can grow your family in an intergenerational environment
Right.
where you have community. So that's
Now,
what we're doing. So
did you go ahead? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the money we've raised to date was all catalyzed by Vocal.
Right.
And I feel like had I not applied for that to get us this funding, I wouldn't have had the clarity I have now, and that things got really honed and, time tested.
Right.
And then they not only funded the fellowship, it's a 6-month fellowship, they then have an alumni program. So they've continued to stay
Right.
near me, meet
Right,
monthly,
right.
even send me other funding opportunities I can apply for.
Yeah.
So they really want to see it grow legs.
Now, when you get this stuff built out and you start building, how is it exactly that folks are going to get ownership into whatever space
Great
you create?
question.
Yeah.
So part of the funding that we got
Right.
with the wealth building from Department of Planning and the Together We Heal is we already have planned, and we're going to be launching this fall, 8 to 10 training sessions about the principles of cooperatives,
Right.
a little about the background of Black African American cooperatives in particular in the United
Right.
States, and the artists and creative entrepreneurs that go through all those sessions then have the opportunity, so everyone has the same understanding and ownership of this idea of cooperatives.
Yeah.
And then they can raise their hand and say, okay, I want to be an owner in this building. And then we begin the process of them starting to put some skin in the game with money on the table
Right.
as their investment to have a share of ownership in the cooperative. And our goal and our vision is to obviously continue fundraising towards the 8 to
Right.
12 million.
Right.
And the other we need for more feasibility,
Right.
so that we can also seed those artists and creative entrepreneurs with like their initial
But
funding.
they're going to all have skin in
And
the
then
game
they
from
all
their earnings.
exactly.
Yeah,
and
okay.
and ideally what we envision is being able to, whoever goes through those trainings, to actually give them in their pot of investment an amount of money, whether it's 500 or 1,000, to really catalyze
What they do,
their
right.
investment that they'll need to raise to have that ownership stake. And then once we have the whole crew of however many artists are going to be in the building, right now let's just call it 30, because that's
Right.
where our brain was last year, then this is how it turns traditional development on its head also. Not only we're talking about cooperatives, there's no need for sales. There's no need. Then those people also have a say in
how the building is run. They have a say.
to meet their needs. So
Yeah.
what does this space need to have? What does
Right.
it need to look like? What can we financially do with all those needs? What can we meet? How can we find happy mediums? Where can we design? So that takes us to design,
Right.
which is then an important part of
Okay, wait.
the
but
process.
There are two things here, because earlier you mentioned that you don't have a design yet because it may be a building, it may be a scattered thing of homes, it may be, you haven't envisioned what the outcome is going to be yet. And you're saying that these people who have skin in the game, they will determine if you guys are going to build a building, you're going to build several buildings, etc. Am I understanding correctly?
To a certain degree, yes.
Right.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So we're simultaneously, so the grant we got for wealth building with the
Right.
Department of Planning, the goal in the 12 months that we have is to be at a place of what's called site control by the end of that 12 months or sooner. So
You should
we
have
already,
land.
or control of a space.
Meaning
either
owning
land-
or renting.
So control just means you have the right to do things with the space.
Got it. Okay.
To begin the development process. You may not own it,
Right.
but you might.
Right.
It kind of, every single situation is
It's
different.
different, right.
So then when we get that, we will then take the next steps, and the design of the space. So during that time also we'll be including those artists, doing focus groups, talking with them, doing what's called a charrette. It's kind of a design experience with
Right.
the architect and community to say what we want to have in this space. However, because of the complexity of development, it may not be that those ultimate owners of the cooperative, collective owners of the cooperative, actually have a say in, it's going to be this building, or it's going to be scattered site, or it's going to be that.
What would make them not have that decision making?
Because it's such a simultaneous process between getting them trained,
So meaning
us
the leader,
finding-
you guys
us as the
leaders
leadership team.
may just go ahead and make that decision because it's more expedient at that time. I mean, expedient may not
Partly.
be the right word.
Well,
but
expedient
yeah.
probably isn't the right word, but
Right.
because there are competing priorities
Right,
of need to get site control.
right,
However, site control does not define design.
right, right.
So design then becomes the next part of the process,
Right.
which absolutely includes
Right.
the owners.
Got it.
And that's almost more important. It's equal, but it's
Right.
almost more important because how the space is used indoors, outdoors, collectively with the community is also something we'll be doing simultaneously, but that almost becomes more important than, well, is it a 5-story building or
Right,
is it
right,
scattered site?
Right. So then the last question is going to be this. The idea of having these cooperatives, housing for artists, etc. Do you have intentions of leveraging that further? It's like, hey, this is a model that actually works.
Yes.
If this model can work with artists, what other trades or what other kinds of stuff can we leverage this to kind of give us more of an inclusive democracy that allows folks to build wealth?
I want to add a word in what you just said.
Go
You
for
said
it.
inclusive, democratic process, and accessible.
And
because we're also
right.
foundationally based in wanting to assure, not wanting,
Right.
committing to assure that a third or more of the building is also made accessible and
Right.
designed from the beginning
Right.
for people with disabilities who are creative entrepreneurs and artists. To your question, not really. There's not a vision to say, okay, now we want to expand and see how this works for some other community. There's still enough artists, creative entrepreneurs,
Right.
with and without, of all abilities, who have a need for space, whether it's for their practice or whether it's for their personal life or both, in a work-live situation, that are not being met. The affordable housing need in the city of Chicago is
I covered
huge.
that, yeah.
And specifically for artists, I can't tell you how many calls or emails I get
Yeah.
with people saying, do you know where there's some space I can afford?
Right, right.
We've been doing surveys and getting in. So the need is still great. So yes, but we do want it to be a model that can be replicated in the city.
And
That's
the
why we're
magic.
doing it
Replicated.
Yes.
Replication.
in the city,
Yeah.
nationally, perhaps even internationally, because there aren't enough models of this type of development.
Yeah.
At least we know that the need is huge.
Well, from the time I met you and you told me about the model, I liked it. I think it's something that should work, can work. And you tell me about cooperatives, I fall in love. I think cooperatives are where we really should be heading. Cooperative versus corporations.
Yes.
Cooperatives,
Well, and we clarified that when we talked last year, though, is that actually a cooperative is a type of corporation.
Right,
it's
but
just a different model.
The model is that it's not shareholder based.
It's
based
grassroots. It's
grassroots,
human.
exactly.
It's democratic.
Exactly. Shareholding
It's
isn't
not.
democratic.
It's not about who's at the top has control and all that.
Kiela, you should remember by now I'm going to say what was the question that I should have asked you that I didn't. You should be prepared for that.
Yeah, I am. What do we need going forward? So I'll tell you that.
That's a cheating answer because as it turns out, that's the same question. That's the same one you gave before. Go ahead.
So what we're doing now that you see this momentum of fundraising and support, we're really excited with what's coming up with events and the trainings and the community engagement and festivals and things we're planning. What we really need to get some stronger legs under this and to be able to propel quicker is funding sources that come with more than just 1 year or 6 months. So we're really projecting, looking at $3 to $5.
$150,000 is only for 1 year?
1 year.
Okay.
So looking towards 3 to 5 year philanthropic support to give some capacity buildings. We can bring on perhaps some more staff. We can, because really I'm only considered part-time, but I work, of course, more than part-time.
Yeah.
And so really getting some
So it's
longer
3 of
term
you.
funding. There's 3 of us, yes.
Well, look, I think you guys are going
All
to do
artists,
that.
by the
All
way.
artists. And I think you guys are going to do it. The fact that, writing proposal, not proposal, what you call them, grants. Writing proposal
All
for
of that,
grants is not an easy thing. And actually getting the grants is a harder thing. So, all right, look at her. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you
Kiela
so much.
Smith,
Thank you.
I tell you
Thank
what, that you said you had an update. That wasn't an update. That was a mega update.
Okay, thank you.
That was
Thank
a mega
you.
update.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.